Hey Kat, this is a podcast style video, just like the last video I posted. I would be really glad to hear your feedback on this way of sharing my idea. So please leave a comment below to let me know what you think about it. English or French, it doesn't matter. Have you already been disappointed by someone's wrongdoings or something you had expected to happen? What we call expectations, or les attentes in French, are equivocal. On one hand, everyone seems to have expectations in life. From trivial things such as expecting coffee machine to work, we all have expectations, all the way up to sun rising tomorrow. In a way, expectations are like a computer program running in repetitive loops lodged inside our heads, telling us how the world goes every day. The fact that certain behaviors and certain phenomena persist in time make us content that they will repeat on and on, unless there's some kind of crisis or deep change in our ordinary lives. This is quite what the philosopher George Herbert Mead theorized. According to Mead, every human being comes to understand the social world around him by interacting with other people. For instance, kid learns that spilling milk over the table is something wrong, not only when his parents tell him that it is, but also when he sees that this is not tolerated by people outside of his close circle of relatives. If the kid gets disciplined by other adults when spilling milk at his parents' friends, he realizes that some things generally happen this way. The kid would then accept this as a given and expect everyone else to behave the way he now identifies as being the correct one. Therefore, expectations can be very much of help to make one's way into the world. On the other hand, expectations can be very painful. When you expect something to happen, it can mean that you desire for it to happen. And when there's a will, there's a ghost of disappointment. Have you ever been waiting for someone you just met to answer your calls? How long have you been waiting without this peculiar feeling of anxiety invading your thoughts? Will she ever answer? What is she doing? What's on her mind? Of course, this anxiety coming of unachieved expectations can come out of love, but even out of friendship. One of my friends, whom I don't see anymore because of a disagreement we've had, used to say that we know our friends from their ability to disappoint us. Extreme case of disappointment stirred by unachieved expectation can be found by the example of the incel, involuntary celibate. It consists of people who define themselves as unable to get romantic or sexual partner despite desiring one. Some incels consider that women are responsible for their celibacy and promote violence against those who rejected them sexually. Some of the incels even go on to claim violent acts such as rape as a vehicle for their resentment. As it appears, expectations and answering feelings shouldn't be taken lightly. Hence, some YouTubers and writers from the field of personal development simply recommend the expecting wretched individual to get rid of his expectation. The individual is spurred to look at himself, at his own whimsical feelings, and he is asked to let go of these feelings, thus suggesting that the individual has the ability to free himself by a flip of his mind. But can one really untie himself from his wills, like some gaudy garment we're tired to wear? For the French anthropologist Marcel MAUSS, expectations are what define every collective action. This simply means that behind every collective act, there are social rules. Just like the kid cannot carelessly spill the milk over the table, we cannot kill someone, insult our relatives, or spit on a priest without risk. Since rules imply sanctions, whether friendly disapproval or criminal penalty, we generally comply with the social principles we've been exposed to. Hence, Mauss shows that in some tribes of the Pacific Oceans, failing to go with the religious or magic rules can force the individuals into the worst end, the pressure of failure being so abiding that some individuals die with no apparent signs of wounds or strangling. Mauss mentions the case of a young and healthy Aboriginal who suddenly turns ill after he had stolen a marsupial before being allowed to eat it. His peers had seen that he didn't meet the tribe's expectations. As a consequence of this, the young man lies down on the ground to never rise anymore and dies in 3 weeks. My point here is that we don't simply get rid of expectations we have, because expectations are not only in ourselves, they come from the outside as permanent constraints because of the social rules that precede us. In fact, expectation ties us to the other individuals. There are social links because they force us to behave with the others under a common set of views. It is normal to get wary of someone not answering your texts after 1 week. As expectations define a great part of our interactions, we can also accept them as such and find some relief when someone meets ours. We can relate this to dopamine, a hormone commonly known as happy hormone, since it is responsible for us feeling pleasure and motivation. Our body releases dopamine when we anticipate something which we find good to us. In fact, anticipation and the pleasure we draw from it come namely from what has been defined as good for us, as a social rule, which means that, to some extent, biology relates to our expectations. Is this to say that expectations are everything or everlasting? Actually, expectations change as the organization which supports them change too. One of our everyday expectations are gender expectations. For instance, we generally contend that a man or a woman will perform a certain way of dressing. These expectations were kind of strong when the church and religious authorities in Europe strictly defined gender's roles for both men and women. But the growing consciousness about the variety of genders supported by LGBT's organization have made these expectations weaker over the period of time. To conclude, expectations might not be that easy to get rid of. They may be deeply intertwined with our socialization, making it hard to dismiss. But they may change when the people supporting the social rules change. This makes room for new ways of being, not only for oneself, but with others. And if this change doesn't show up soon enough, we keep on sharing things, as our expectations bind us together one way or another. Thank you for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed it. What do you think about expectations? Do you think that we can change them? And how? Please let me know in the comments below. Take care, cut, and see you for the next video. All these mixed emotions.